Over the weekend, a chilling discovery of weapons in a Denver hotel room near the site of tomorrow's MLB All-Star game. And it's adding to the urgency to try to get guns out of the wrong people's hands. Denver police arrested 4 people on Friday, seizing more than a dozen weapons and more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition from their room. Police say there is no active threat, but importantly, some of the suspects were prohibited from owning firearms. Today, President Biden is addressing the recent rise in gun violence in a meeting with Attorney General Merrick Garland, law enforcement leaders, and elected officials from around the country. Watch.
We know there are some things that work, and the first of those that works is stemming the flow of firearms used to commit violent crimes. We recognize that we have to come together to fulfill the first responsibility of a democracy. That's to keep each other safe. And that's what the American people are looking for when it comes to reducing violent crime and gun violence.
Joining our conversation, New York Times White House correspondent Michael Shear, Michael Steele, and Claire McCaskill are still here. Michael Shear, talk about this issue and where it sort of fits for a president who never let himself get tagged with any of the defund the police attacks that the ex-president launched against him. This seems personal and important and a priority to him.
Right. I mean, it's personal partly because of the long history that he has with this issue. This is a politician who, long ago, decades ago in the Senate was fighting gun issues and violence issues, and was part of the assault weapons ban decades ago that first went into effect. But it's also personal because of the way that he ran his campaign. While he didn't get dragged into the defund the police movement, he did promise to do something about crime, and lo and behold, here we are in this summer, and there's a real surge in crime. And I think he's trying to find a way to sort of straddle the line, to sort of satisfy the liberals in his party who, rightly in the view of Joe Biden and the White House, want to do something about police reform and the abuses of some members of the police, but who also wants to demonstrate that to the broader public that he knows how to address and to contain these devastating, awful, horrific, shootings, which are just increasing. And so he's trying to do both. I thought it was really interesting that he invited Eric Adams, who, of course, was the Democrat who won the New York. This is what Eric Adams managed to do. He's a former police captain in New York, but he sort of managed to walk that line, not anger the progressives too much, but really run on a kind of tough on crime message. And I think, by association, the president hopes a little bit of that, pixie dust will kind of rub off on him, I think, and that he'll manage to sort of navigate the issue in the same way.
Claire, I want to read you some of Michael's colleague Katie Rogers' reporting on the White House strategy here. As the White House seeks to combat a surge in violence, the issue is politically freighted for Biden. Republicans have accused him of being soft on crime, but as a presidential candidate, he declined to embrace calls from the progressive wing of his own party to defund police departments after police shootings of African Americans. And as president, he has called for more investment in law enforcement agencies. Just talk about, I think Michael used the right word. He's trying to straddle intensity really all across the country and especially all across his own party. Do you think he's getting that balance right?
Well, certainly the vast majority of Americans do not like the idea of defunding the police, and Joe Biden gets that. And Joe Biden does have history here. When I was the elected prosecutor in Kansas City in the 90s, Joe Biden was the one who was really steering the Community Policing Act through Congress. And I saw firsthand when we had those additional resources from the federal government that allowed us to augment police departments with community police officers assigned to a neighborhood who got to know the neighborhood leaders, who went to the neighborhood meetings and frankly recruited police cadets out of those communities to work in those communities. That's how you rebuild trust, where the trust is badly frayed right now. And Joe Biden, not only is he advocating that, he's saying, use the resources we've provided for you, cities. You've got money in the bank from the recovery plan. Use that money to augment your police departments with a community policing effort that can do both bring down crime and help restore trust.
Michael Steele, 2 minutes of local news coverage in any city. I watch local news in New York City. I catch it in Connecticut. I see it in D.C. The lead stories are crime. It seems, I think this is the second or third public event this president has had on this issue. It is what's happening. It is what's on people's mind. It is a policy priority. But it feels like this is sort of quintessential Biden to be hanging on to something that cross-pressures him in his own party a little bit.
Yeah, I think I like the way Michael put that, because I think that's exactly how it is. There is a lot of cross current, going on here. But I guess at the center of it is this truth: this ain't 1994. So in the 1990s, the Claire McCaskills and other prosecutors around the country, with law enforcement and with had citizens who wanted something done, and they were all on the same page. And so we saw that crime bill go through. And now we also know the consequences of that crime bill and how it impacted, how it landed in a lot of communities. I could cite you chapter and verse in places like Prince George's County and Baltimore City, my home city where I grew up in Washington, D.C. Wasn't quite the same as it was in some neighborhoods. And so now with those cross currents coming again, you find the public is in one space, prosecutors and law enforcement are in different spaces. So for this president, he's got to try to navigate that. And I think the best thing that Joe Biden can do, because he's known for this, is to be honest about what he wants to get done. But more importantly, be honest about what can get done, because you're not going to satisfy all of those cross currents, because as the violence in whatever form it takes, over the rest of the summer and into the fall, you've got to be prepared to give the people some sense that not only do you see that violence, but you have a way to begin to check it. And they're going to watch very carefully this time, Nicole. They're not going to let you put forward the kind of legislation that had the negative impact that we saw over the last 30 years when it came to crime bills and crime control.
Nobody,
but
let me just, I gotta jump in here real quickly. Nobody, Joe Biden is not advocating, I'm not advocating, no one is advocating for the 90s crime bill. I'm talking about a piece of that bill that dealt with community policing. And that works, not the minimum mandatories, not locking up mentality, but rather a community-based approach. And that's where Joe Biden is going to land.
Michael Scheer, Michael Steele, Claire McCaskill, thank you so much for joining us.